Well, according to reports, the Federation Accounts Allocation Committee disbursed a total of 2.08 trillion naira in allocations to local government councils between July and December this year. However, almost 6 months after the Supreme Court ruling that funds meant for local governments should be paid directly into their accounts, the federal government has not effected direct payment of allocations to the local government. The essence of the judgment was to promote autonomy and ensure full financial autonomy of the local government. The non-execution of the Supreme Court judgment is unsettling members of the Association of Local Governments of Nigeria and the National Union of Local Government Employees. Adeboro Damson, a senior advocate of Nigeria, is here to look at this issue. We'll also have in a moment joining us Issa Gambo, who is the Secretary General of Norgay, afterwards. Thank you so much, senior advocate, for joining us on the news tonight.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Well, I mean, when you hear situations like this, the Supreme Court, which is the final arbiter of arbitration in the country, has given a subsisting judgment, yet 6 months after, it's yet to be implemented. What's your reaction?
It's unfortunate. The Supreme Court is the final court in Nigeria, and its judgment is binding on law, authorities, and persons in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So as it stands, that judgment should be obeyed and ought to be obeyed. And if there is an infraction, then the machinery should be put in place for the enforcement of the judgment against any erring authority or persons, irrespective of its standing in the society. So folding our harm, seeing that some persons are violating the judgment of the Supreme Court, will not go away with the country. It files an invitation to anarchy. So my take on it is simple. The Supreme Court judgment can be enforced by any authority or persons within the country, particularly those who are affected.
Great. So we can potentially call this a contempt of court.
It is. It is a contempt of court.
And so what are the potential legal penalties for this contempt or consequences?
In the first place, I think the blame has been shifted to the federal government. Now, why is it that the federal government make allocation directly to the governor instead of the local government? Well, and the federal government has come to say, look, we're mapping out strategy on the enforcement of the judgment. How easy, how simple to enforce the judgment. So that is the defense of the federal government. But even on the part of the local government, what are they looking at? If, for instance, the judgment or the governors of the states are in violation of the Supreme Court judgment, what are the local governments waiting for? Can they go to court for the enforcement of the judgment? I have said that the judgment of the Supreme Court is binding on everybody, and it can be enforced by any person or authority in the country. So if particularly a local government is aggrieved by the action of the governor or the government of the state, they can go to a court to say, okay, this judgment must be enforced by paying directly to us without removing a kobo from what the federal government has remitted to the local government. But the rider here is can the appointee challenge the appointor? Because even though in the name of elections, yes, you have local governments, but in reality, we discover that those manning the local government, even though there was an election, were appointed. So if somebody was appointed, will he be able to challenge the person who appointed him? Because most times, the so-called elections where people were unpicked against the will and intention of the people in the particular locality.
Are you saying that the local government chairmen genuflect to the governors, and so because of that, they are unable to demand what the Supreme Court has said is rightfully theirs?
The willpower is not there. The audacity is not there, because your mandate is gotten from where? That's the first question you have to yourself. When you have not got your mandate genuinely it will be difficult for you to challenge the authority. So that's another difficult area. But the NOGE, the National Unions of Local Government Employees,
yes,
they are affected parties. And they go to court to enforce the judgment of the Supreme Court. Or people from the local government vicinity. So people can rise up to the occasion to text the law in the court.
Indeed.
For instance, it was a bold step to challenge the law at the Supreme Court, where you now have local government autonomy. So further steps can be taken. That's how we can develop our jurisprudence.
Tell us about how this is supposed to work. I mean, the Supreme Court gave that judgment. Are there steps to implementation, or is it a direct, order that says this money should go directly? Or are there steps that need to be taken by the federal government and others in this? Perhaps that's what's causing the delay. Can that be an excuse?
We have read that that's the defense of the federal government.
How long should this be? Is there a stipulated time for this
there was no stipulated
implementation period?
There was no stipulated time. So anybody can hide under that for the allocation of time. But I don't think there is anything hard in this matter, even though there are no hard and fast rule about how to get about it. But the issue is this: if there is willpower, if there is political willpower, this thing will be done without friction, without problem, and seamlessly. But because the willpower is not there, and even the governors are not willing. For instance, you see what happened in Anambra State, where the governor was introducing a bill to say that even though this money is coming to the local government will remit part of the government to the state government as part of that contribution. I don't know how their own system runs, but the issue is this: the internally generated revenues of the states, do they share the area council? Even at that does not warrant the state government to say that whatever is coming from federal government should be a percent of it should be remitted to the state.
This was hailed as a win for federalism and how we practice our democracy. But when you have a situation where the Supreme Court, the apex court of the land, gives a judgment and is not implemented, it leaves you asking more questions. Stay with us, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Let's take this story and get your thought on it. The Supreme Court has dismissed the suit seeking to sack President Bola Tinubu from office. But the suit filed by Ambrose Owuru, the presidential candidate of the Hope Democratic Party in the 2019 general election, sought Tinubu's removal based on a U.S. Central Intelligence Agency report on drug allegations. Owuru equally urged the apex court to disqualify Tinubu on account of earlier forfeiting the sum of $460,000 to the U.S. government in a drug-related case. A 5-member panel of the apex court led by Justice Wani Abaji held that the suit was frivolous and that Owuru be fined the sum of 5 million naira as penalty. It further warns the registry of the Supreme Court against receiving originating summons from Owuru ever again. The British-trained lawyer, who was called to the Nigerian bar in 1984, had equally challenged the electoral victory of ex-president Muhammadu Buhari, saying his tenure was illegal.
I'm not too proud to call myself a lawyer today. The Supreme Court, I'm over 40 years at the bar. The Supreme Court I met will hear every case. They won't predetermine a matter by just looking at the subject. We have made a good case, and they have refused to hear us. For whatever reason. In other countries, in Georgia now, the president has been removed. It doesn't require Supreme Court. It's Nigerians who now think they have a Supreme Court that will give them judgment. I'm sorry, it's not coming. All we got today was attack, say the date, we say this, we say no, you didn't say it well. What kind of proceeding is this?
Well, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, your reactions to that, but let me say that the Nigerian judiciary has been under scrutiny for a long time, whether it's in defamation cases or it's in electoral matter cases. What's your reaction to the lawyer Owuru, who has now been fined 5 million naira, and the Supreme Court saying do not receive any originating summons from him ever again?
The suit is rather unfortunate. I learned of that suit yesterday, and I was shocked that how did that kind of a suit find its way to the Supreme Court? there are procedures for bringing action in Supreme Court. Now, how do we classify that kind of action? Is it pre-election matter or post-election matter? That's the problem here. The Constitution has provided for the mode of instituting action in pre-election matter and post-election. And I am not aware of the law that confers jurisdiction of the Supreme Court to hear matters between two individuals. This is not state against state. This is an individual person suing the federal government suing the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Why is the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court in here? So the action of the Supreme Court against this particular lawyer, to me, is in order. The action is frivolous. You don't just go to the Supreme Court to issue an action. If you are started from High Court, it's understandable. And it travels to Supreme Court. It's understandable. From Supreme Court, it is of someone in Supreme Court to say that disqualify the president because of what had happened in the past. Now, like I asked, do you classify it as pre-election matter or post-election matter? Is it as a result of the election that was said in 2023? Or what transpired before that election to confer jurisdiction of Supreme Court or election tribunal or ordinary court? Even if it is a pre-election matter, is it the Supreme Court that will have jurisdiction? Those are the questions. So such matter should not be entitled by the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court was right in the action it took today.
Let's talk about the court itself. Should it be having self-reflection? I mean, you've asked the right question tonight. How did such a case that has been described as frivolous and vexatious by the justices of the Supreme Court today, how did it get all the way to the apex court?
Well,
of course, lawyers were involved, judges were involved. Your
colleagues. No, judges are not involved. It's the registry.
It did pass through.
No, it's registry of the court.
The ranks of the courts.
No. You see, this is the individual, Mr. Owuru, filed the matter at the registry of Supreme Court. So it is the registry of Supreme Court that ought to have scrutinized the process to see whether it will pass the test of time, to see whether it is in compliance with the rules of Supreme Court, the excellent rules of Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court Act. So if they are failing the action, you can't blame the Supreme Court justices over this matter. Again, well, you can blame the lawyer. But again, can you totally blame the lawyer? He has gone to test the law to see whether it will work. But I assure you, it is not all suits that you accept as a lawyer to go and litigate.
And let's talk about defamation cases that are on the rise in Nigeria. I actually wanted to get your thought on that. Where do we draw the line? First, let me ask you the basics. At what point would you say someone has been defamed? What qualifies defamation?
You know, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we say, is supreme. And it has conferred rights, inalienable rights, on individuals, particularly the right to speech. So, but you remember that no right is absolute. Because where your right ends is where my right begins. So when you begin to say words or print words that will be injurious to a third party, and you print it or you say it to the hearing of a third party, then you have defamed that person.
What happens if the statement that may appear defamatory are actually true? For instance, this statement have been made repeatedly by several people in previous times. What then happens? Is it still defamatory?
The danger in following the bad wagon is the fact that that person may be, the last person may be the scapegoat. That somebody or people have been saying it repeatedly does not make it true. You don't say a word that you cannot defend. So if once there is a rumor that you cannot defend or you cannot go or probe, then it is better to refrain from it. So where you go ahead to say it or to print it out by way of social media, then you're on your own. If it is found to be false, then you'll be held liable.
Finally, before I let
whether civilly or criminally.
Let me ask you, because there's been this debate since we see increased cases of defamation. Where do you draw the line between holding public figures accountable or even individuals in society accountable and avoiding defamatory statements? So the fine line between freedom of speech and dissidents in the country and then accountability.
The borderline here is this. Ensure that whatever you are saying is true and correct. If you have anything to say against authority and you have your evidence,
Okay.
then you can say it. But where you have no evidence, or you are just following what people are saying, then I can assure you, you have your fingers burnt.
Okay, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Adeboro Damson, thank you so much for being on the news tonight. We do appreciate your time.
My pleasure.